This small creature may look weak, frightened, and harmless, but it's not what you think. Because this young predator is moments away from being sentenced to death for harming a human child. The council chamber was silent as guards brought the creature, trembling and confused, into the center of the room. Its eyes were wide, its scales pale with fear, and its small body shook with every rattling chain. Anyone looking at it would see only a scared child. But the galaxy did not see a child today. They saw a threat, a danger, a criminal. And according to the law, this terrified cub was about to pay the ultimate price. Its crime had shocked every species on the station. 3 cycles ago, during a celebration crowded with thousands of beings, the cub had lost control. The smells, the noise, the movement, everything overwhelmed its young instincts. A human boy wandered too close, and the cub reacted without thinking. Claws flashed, blood spilled. The child survived, but barely. And now, by law, the cub would die. There was no debate, no question, only judgment. But beneath that hard surface, something deeper waited. Because if this sentence went forward, if the galaxy chose death over understanding, then everything could change for the worse. This was not just about one wounded child. It was about how the galaxy treated fear, instinct, and youth. This law was applied without compassion. Then every species would retreat into suspicion. Fear between humans and Krath would rise. Alliances would fracture. Children across the station would learn the worst lesson of all. That one mistake makes you unforgivable. That accidents mean death. That different species can never trust one another. If the council killed this young creature, the galaxy would not only lose a life, it would lose hope, and the message would spread far beyond this chamber. Every predator species would feel attacked. Every prey species would feel justified in their fear. Every treaty would become weaker. One decision could snap the thin strand of trust that held the station together. That was why this moment mattered. If this decision went wrong, if the council chose punishment over growth, then generations might pay the price. The future of interspecies peace depended on whether this frightened young predator would be seen as a monster or as a child who made a terrible mistake. The chamber felt colder as everyone waited for the council to speak. The young predator theory stood trembling in chains. Its scales shifted from dark red to a sickly gray, each color flickering like a heartbeat of fear. The room, shaped like a massive circle, held representatives from dozens of species. Watched with anger, some with pity, some with fear. Theory kept its eyes low, unable to meet the gaze of anyone present. 3 cycles ago, everything had gone wrong. The Integration Festival was supposed to be a celebration of unity. Music, lights, food stalls, beings from 100 worlds meeting in peace. But for a young predator, it had been overwhelming. The sense of cooked meats, the sudden loud noises, the crowds pressing from every direction, all of it had awakened. Old instincts buried deep in its species' nature. And in one tragic moment, a human child wandered too close. Theory reacted like any frightened animal might. A swipe, a scream, blood. It had happened too fast for anyone to stop. The boy survived. Because human doctors worked tirelessly to rebuild his arm. But the scars would stay with him forever. Now, the cub, barely old enough to understand what it had done, faced death. Galactic Law, Article 3.7, left no room for mercy. The Krath ambassador stepped forward, head bowed low, voice trembling with sorrow. They accepted the blame, the evidence, and the punishment without question. To them, this was the only way to show responsibility. Theory whimpered softly, part growl, part terrified sob, and the sound echoed through the chamber like a broken instrument. The human delegation rose to speak next. Their representative began reading a formal statement, acknowledging the pain, the fear, the wounds inflicted on one of their own. The tone was cold, measured, diplomatic. It felt like the first step toward a sentence no one could stop, until a voice cut through the chamber like a blade. I object. The word echoed across the chamber, sharp and shocking. Every translator. Device buzzed in confusion as dozens of species turned toward the source of the voice. A human man stood up from the observer section, a place where no one was supposed to speak. He wasn't part of the formal delegation. He wasn't scheduled to address the council. And yet, he stepped forward with calm, unwavering purpose. Counselor? Vex, the crystalline adjudicator, darkened in color. Identify yourself, they demanded, each word ringing with displeasure. The man didn't hesitate. Trevon Cole, Security Chief of Station Harmony, Human Division. His voice was steady, practiced, and carried a weight that made even hardened soldiers shift uneasily. He took another step into the open chamber. I am also the father of the boy who was injured. A wave of gasps swept through the room. Ambassador. Zelthic of the Krath Dominion turned ghost pale, all four arms trembling. The human ambassador's diplomatic mask cracked for the first time. No one had expected this. No one had prepared for a parent to confront the council directly. Chief Cole, this is highly irregular, Representative Walsh snapped. You have no authority to. I have every authority, Draven replied quietly, but with a force. That stopped the room cold. Article 3.7 states that the injured party, or their immediate family, may invoke the right of intervention before a sentence is carried out. I'm invoking that right now. Counselor Vex flickered with agitation. Surely you understand what you're asking for. This creature attacked your son, nearly killed him. By all accounts, Draven interrupted, Theory is a child. The word struck the chamber like a shockwave. Heads turned toward the chained cub. Up close, Theory wasn't a monster. Its limbs trembled. Its eyes blinked. Rapidly with panic. It wasn't sleek, or powerful, or confident. It was confused. Young, terrified. Draven walked right up to the center of the chamber, his presence steady and grounded. Yes, my son will carry those scars for life, he said, voice tightening. I held him while they rebuilt his arm. I heard him scream, saw the fear in his eyes whenever a non-human passed his hospital room. Council leaned in, transfixed. And yet, Draven continued, facing every representative present. I am the one asking you to stop this execution. Ambassador Zelthic's voice cracked. Why? Why would you spare our child when we have accepted guilt, accepted punishment, accepted everything? Draven looked down at Theory. The cub stared back with all six eyes wide, lost between terror and confusion, because 300 years ago, Draven said softly, humans were the monsters. Asterisk, the chamber fell utterly silent. Not a whisper, not a breath, even the translators. Hesitated before repeating Draven's words into dozens of languages. He stood there, calm, but carrying centuries of history in his voice. When humans first reached the stars, Draven continued, we were aggressive, territorial, and frightened of everything unfamiliar. We saw danger everywhere. Species saw us as predators, monsters, a threat to the galaxy. He let the truth settle in the air. It wasn't an accusation. It was a confession. We fought wars over resources we didn't need. We damaged planets trying to claim them. We were reckless and angry. We made mistakes that cost innocent lives. His voice softened, but someone gave us a chance. He turned toward Theory again, his expression shifting from stern to heartbreakingly gentle. Some species saw past the violence. They saw who we could become, not who we were in our worst moments. They saw potential where others saw fear. They treated our children like students, not criminals. A murmur spread through the chamber. Some nodded, some looked uneasy, but no one interrupted. Visited Theory yesterday, Draven said. I sat outside the detention cell for 6 hours. His voice cracked briefly, the first break in his calm facade. Do you know what I heard? Not anger, not excuses, not defiance. The council leaned closer. All I heard, Draven said softly, was a child saying, I'm sorry. Over and over. 6 hours of tears, of fear, of regret. He looked slowly around the chamber, making sure every representative met his eyes. Monsters don't apologize. Monsters don't feel remorse, but children make mistakes. And children can learn. Ambassador Zelthic's voice shook. Chief Cole. Your compassion is extraordinary. But this sets a dangerous precedent. If we show leniency, Representative Walsh added sharply, others may take advantage. We cannot weaken the law. Draven exhaled slowly and turned toward them both. If we show leniency, he said, we prove something far more important. He stepped forward, his shadow falling across the trembling cub. We prove that justice is not about revenge, and it is not only about punishment. Justice is also about protection, growth, and second chances. His voice deepened, carrying. Through the entire chamber, my son survived. He will heal. And one day I want him to live in a galaxy where mercy is not seen as weakness. Silence spread once more, heavy and thoughtful. A galaxy, Draven finished, where we judge beings not only by what they have done, but by what they can become. It was a turning point. Everyone felt it. Even Theory, who stared up at Draven as if seeing hope for the very first time. The chamber felt different now. The air was thicker, heavier, as if every person inside was suddenly aware they stood on the edge of something important. Counselor Vex's crystalline body flickered in sharp pulses, a sign of deep conflict. Tradition pressed against progress. Law pressed against compassion. And the galaxy watched. Chief Colvex began slowly. Our laws exist to maintain safety, to protect the innocent, to prevent chaos. If we bend them here, how do we justify not bending them again? Draven didn't hesitate. By remembering why the law was written in the first place. Article 3.7 wasn't created to punish children. It was created to prevent species from ignoring violent crimes. He lifted his chin slightly. Theory's actions were not malice. They were instinct, fear, overload. Ambassador Zelthic stepped forward, voice trembling. We have accepted the consequences because we believed we must, because we feared the alternative. But hearing this, their words broke apart, held up only by grief. Are we wrong to surrender our child? Draven answered gently. You did what any parent would do when the galaxy demands justice. But justice doesn't have to mean death. Representative Walsh crossed her arms tightly. And what message does it send to our citizens if an attack on a human child goes unpunished? Draven faced her fully. Who says it goes unpunished? Rehabilitation is not forgiveness. It is responsibility. It is work. It is learning. And it is the hardest path of all. His voice deepened. But it's the only path that builds peace instead of fear. Murmurs rippled across the chamber as the idea settled in. Some representatives exchanged uncertain glances. Others looked openly moved. A few still appeared unconvinced, clinging to the old ways as if breaking them would unravel the universe. Draven continued. If we execute theory, every species with predator instincts will feel targeted. They'll hide their children. They'll avoid festivals, schools, shared spaces. Integration will slow to a crawl. Fear will grow like a shadow over everything we've built. He stepped closer to the council platform, his voice turning firm and clear. But if we show that even in our greatest hurt, we choose mercy, then we prove something powerful. We prove that the galaxy can grow past old fears. We prove we are not ruled by instinct. We prove that different species can look at one another and see hope, not danger. His words hung in the air, heavy and bright all at once. Ambassador Zelthic bowed their head, emotion trembling through all four arms. We ask not for freedom, but for the chance for our child to become better. Draven nodded. I ask for the same. Long tense silence followed. A silence filled with thinking, remembering, imagining, all the things that happen when a society stands on the edge of change. Everyone knew this was no longer just about theory. This was about who they all chose to be. The chamber seemed to hold its breath as the council withdrew to deliberate. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the air felt still, as if the entire station waited for an answer that could reshape the future. Theory stood trembling alone, chains clinking softly as the young creature shifted its feet. Ambassador Zelthic kept their head bowed, hands clenched together in silent prayer. Draven stood tall, though grief and hope warred behind his steady. Expression. 7 minutes passed.
7 long.
Heavy minutes. When Counselor Vex returned to the center dais, their crystal body glowed brighter than before. The chamber fell into complete silence. The council has reached a decision, Vex announced, their voice echoing through the room. By the invocation of right of intervention, and by the arguments presented before us, execution is suspended. Wave of shock spread instantly. Some gasped, some cried out. Some simply stared in disbelief. Ambassador Zelthic collapsed to their knees, overwhelmed with relief. Vex continued, each word clear and deliberate. In place of death, a rehabilitation protocol shall be established. Theory will be placed under supervised care, monitored closely, and assigned to a joint program under the oversight of Chief Draven Cole. Draven bowed his head respectfully, accepting the duty. This program will pair Theory with human children, Vex said, to learn cooperation, empathy, and control. Both sides will grow. Both sides will teach. Both sides will heal. The chamber murmured, not with fear this time, but with something softer, almost unheard of in such a solemn place. Cautious hope. Representative Walsh stepped forward, struggling to keep her voice steady. May this decision serve as a reminder, she said quietly, that justice can evolve. Ambassador Zelthic lifted their face, tears shining in their eyes. Thank you, they whispered, voice thick with emotion. You have given our child a future we did not believe was possible. Meanwhile, Theory stood frozen. Its scales shifted slowly, trembling between gray and soft red, the colors of fear melting into something like gratitude. For the first time since being dragged into the chamber, its 6 eyes lifted to meet Draven's. There was confusion there, and sorrow, and something new. The first flicker of trust. The guards approached, hands steady, and began removing the heavy chains. Link by link, the weight fell away from the cub's small body. When the final clamp clicked open, Theory exhaled a shaky breath, as if discovering air for the first time. The council watched with silent wonder. This decision was more than a ruling. It was a shift, a turn in history so small it could have been missed, yet so powerful it might one day reshape the galaxy, as the last of the chains fell away. Theory stood unsteady and overwhelmed, staring at its freed wrists, as if unsure the moment was real. The chamber remained silent, watching the young Krath shift from terror to disbelief. Slowly, Theory lifted its head and looked at Draven, all 6 of its eyes wide and shimmering. Why? The cub whispered. The word came out fractured and rough, difficult for its species to form in universal tongue. Why save me?
Almi.
Took a slow breath. His expression softened in a way that made even the hardest soldiers in the room look away. He stepped closer until he stood only an arm's length from the trembling creature. Because someone once saved us, he said quietly. Humans weren't always trusted. We weren't always welcomed. When we first joined the galaxy, we carried our own darkness. We made mistakes. We hurt others. But someone believed we could change. His voice warmed, and they were right. Theory. Blinked rapidly, trying to understand. Mercy, Draven said, is what separates civilization from savagery. Anyone can swing a blade. Anyone can follow a law to the letter. But choosing kindness? Choosing to believe in someone who has fallen? He shook his head gently. That takes real strength. He extended his hand toward Theory, not demanding, not forcing, simply offering the same gesture humans had once offered the galaxy long before they earned acceptance. A gesture of trust, of peace, of hope. Theory hesitated. Its claws twitched. Fear rattled through its small body. The entire chamber watched, barely daring to breathe. Then, slowly, carefully, the cub reached out. One clawed hand brushed Draven's palm, so lightly it almost wasn't a touch at all. Draven didn't flinch, didn't pull back. He simply held his hand steady, letting the young predator choose the contact for itself. A soft sound escaped Theory's throat, not a growl. Not a whimper, but something new, fragile, and full of relief. In that moment, the chamber changed. Something in the air shifted, subtle but unmistakable. Barriers that had stood for generations chipped away. Fear loosened its grip, and for the first time, mercy didn't feel like a risk, but a beginning. Counselor Vex bowed their crystalline head. "May we all learn from this example," they said, voice glowing with sincerity. "May this moment guide us toward a better future." Draven withdrew his hand, only after Theory lowered its own. The cub's scales glowed faintly with soft red, the color of calm, of safety, of hope returning to a frightened child. As guards escorted Theory toward its new life, not in chains, but in supervision and possibility, a quiet truth settled. Over the assembly, they had not simply spared one young life. They had taken a step toward a galaxy where compassion could triumph over fear, and as Draven watched the cub leave the chamber, he allowed himself a small, weary smile. The galaxy had become just a little more human today, in all the best ways.